Hey everyone, I have a boar leg here and I don't have a boning knife at home, so I take a usual butchering knife to cut this one down because I wanted to make some boar goulash. And yeah. First we do some little cuts to get behind the hip bone. I don't know the actual English word for it, so yeah, that's what I'm going to call it. And to cut it out clean, you start by having a little cut under the bone and on the upper bone. And you turn it around, put your knife in a diagonal way under the bone and push down until you reach a hard point where you basically just make a tiny cut. It's way easier with a boning knife, that's clear, but it takes a little turn down here to get under the bone. Then I have a spot to grab the bone, push back a bit of the meat, and I push my knife into this thick vein that connects the two bones. Then I can grab behind it and make a little sharp cut onto the bone. And then I can start to make little cuts onto it to where I took out the tail of the pig and push it down, and like I said, there's a little hard part to cut out. Now to the piping bone, as we call it in German. I don't know the English word. Like I said, we call it Röhrenknochen actually. And now I'm going to cut onto the second layer of meat. With a sharp cut onto the bone, into the fleece, as we call it in German as well. I don't know the English word like usual because my English sucks sometimes, but making some sharp cuts on it, going under the bone skin, push it down with your thumb. I'm actually not deep enough at the upper part of the bone. Then I can basically just cut out the, I say it in German now, Oberschale. Actually, it's pretty tiny when it's from a boar. They don't have a fat ass. Now, the part of the nut. Yes, we call this part actually nut. In German, the word for nut is Nuss, and we also call it Kugel. I don't know if you do that in English. I don't know how you call it in English. But as before, just some very sharp cuts onto the bone. Get under the bone skin. Just make a tiny push under the bone and a sharp cut onto both sides. Then I can cut it off here at the end. So I have a grabbing point. That's usually the best you can do with small pieces of meat, when you always have something to grab, so you can actually cut a wrong part. I actually see I can cut out the Mausknochen, the mouse bone, like mouse, the animal, because it's actually connected here with the nut and the piping bone. So I can cut out both together, which is good. Actually, the mouse bone is the hardest bone in the entire body of the animal. Hold it upwards, cut it all down from the bone. And like I said, I would consider to use a boning knife because this isn't as clean as it should be. It's actually pretty clean for a big knife, but it's not as clean as I would do it at work. But a normal pig has a way bigger ass. Like, this is a small ass for an animal. Now I'm going to cut out the nut. And here we have the hip and Rosenstück, rose piece, like the flower. But yeah, I want to make boar goulash. That's why I actually got this boar leg. Here we have the little nut. Unterschale, Hüfte, where you can actually see where it connects. But to make it easier, actually just grab it from inside and cut down with the tip of your knife in the fleece. And there you have beautifully cut down a boar leg. Now I cut off the upper fat. There's nothing going to waste. I will heat all of it up and then pre-cook it, but take it out in the end, because when you use all of the fat to cook it up, you can't eat that. It tastes really disgusting. So here we take out also the rough fatty parts. This actually would belong to the Oberschale, but it's either going on to be onto the Unterschale or Oberschale, just how you prefer to do it. We usually use this part, Oberscheinzipfel, for goulash or for met or minced meat, how you might know it as well. It's just pretty simple to use. It's pretty fat-free meat. A little bit of veins are inside, but just like 2 or 3 very small veins, so when you actually cook it, you can't taste it or have a bite of it. So This is the Unterschale, and we have a Drüse. We cut that out, and this one actually going to go into the trash. It's just bitter, it doesn't have anything to it, it's just a little Drüse. No, I won't lick that because I don't know where the boar lived. Now the hip. The hip actually has an upper part, a hip top, but actually I can let it on because I cut it down to cubes anyway, but I will take it off just for you guys. At this small animal, just go in there with your thumb and push your knife down all the way. And then I can just simply rip it off. It's easy as that. And to get this part of meat, hold your knife diagonally onto the meat and push it down. But you need a very sharp knife to do that. I'm actually careful because I don't have any hand protection at home, and I don't want to cut into my hand before Christmas because I have a lot of work. So for the nut, because it's so small, I just push my knife slowly in there and cut down a bit of the Bindegewebe. I think, look it up on Google Translate and put it in there so it's not as cringe as it is now. I actually got almost no bone skin in here. The most part of it is on the bone, which is actually good because you can't eat that actually, or at least not really, because it just becomes very hard. It's like eating a shoe or something like that. A leather boot. And here we cut off these tiny veiny parts. And this is the nut. Here I actually got the nut top. I could also cut it off, but at this small part I can actually just take it out with my hands. Just push into it with your thumbs and pull it out a little. And now it's starting to get loose. So I can just pull it out. It's very easy. Since I'm going to just cut it into cubes, here I have actually nothing much to cut off. Just in this part of the nut we have a little vein, and so I have to cut down into here until I reach it. So we have the flat nut and a round nut. Oberscheinzipfel, I don't have to do anything because this thing already has almost nothing on it. Oberschale, a little bit of fat, and that's actually it too. Like only this upper part, everything else is very, very fat free. Or let's never say fat free because nothing is fat free. There's always tiny amounts of fat in the meat itself, but these amounts don't matter. I also have a Oberscheindeckel, Oberscheintip on here. You can grab it from behind, but it's so tiny on here. I wouldn't bother cutting it out because, like I said, it's actually very, very low fat. and under it there's also almost no fat to see. Here at the zipfel we have a tiny bit of fat. That's it. You don't have to cut out any more. A little bit of fat is always good. And yeah, this is an entire upper boar leg.